I found myself traveling in total darkness. And I look in the distance, and there is a speck of light. As I come closer to it, it looks like a stream. It's like crystals, like flowing crystal.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God, those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see his hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, like in this one, big and little God incidents. Welcome. So glad you're here for episode 193, Joseph's near-death experience. He's actually had two, but both strikingly similar. And with near-death experiences, actually with all these encounter stories, you look for what's the transformation? What's the fruit of the encounter? There is certainly fruit. And actually, that's kind of the meat of this podcast sandwich. At the beginning and the end, we have something else. At the beginning, we have, it's a car story. You ever see the movie or read the book Christine? Stephen King, or the car with an attitude. Well, there's a car at the beginning that seems to want to crush Joseph, but he's got a strong angel. And at the end, again, another car seems to want to crush Joseph, and again, he's got an angel with some very timely nudges, shall we say? So that's all coming up. And Joseph, I don't think he'll mind if I tell you, he's nearing 80. And there's been all these opportunities when he could have gone home, and God says, no, not yet, not yet.
Okay, Mr. Trapper. Now, your name is Trapper Jack?
Yes.
John?
Jack, yeah.
I thought so. You know, I heard you on the radio. You were with, I forget his name, but I occasionally turned it on to that station, and I heard you, and I liked what you had to say. And I just happened to turn it on, and here's somebody that actually made sense and spoke in complete sentences, and it was you.
I think I used verbs that night too. I think I had verbs
you did,
and consonants and stuff, vowels.
Adverbs too, yeah.
Adverbs,
and
couple.
Pleasant ones, yeah.
Joseph's quite a character, and he'll tell you that early on, he'll use words like he was rogue or rebel. He was a tough kid, joined the Marines, that kind of guy, you know. Raised Catholic in New Jersey, mom and dad, well.
Mom was an angel, dad was a tyrant. That gives you an idea. I grew up in the 40s and 50s, and I enjoyed happy days back there. And I didn't as well. Crappy family life. But I guess I was a tough kid. I didn't take a lot of things even from grown-ups. So,
did you end up going to Vietnam? You're in the era.
I was in the era, and it was just at the beginning. In fact, when they had the Bay of Pigs thing and the Kennedy thing with Cuba, well, I was packed up and on the ship out of South Carolina because we were on our way to Cuba. And so we were all set for it to happen. And of course, it didn't.
All right. So talk to me about experiences or what brought you back, wherever you want to go next.
The one I wrote you about is one of several, but it is a key one because I always liked old cars. And I had one out in the garage that I had purchased inexpensively. And I'm going to do some things, I don't know if you remember, but back in the 50s, they used to, American Graffiti a la, and they used to lower the cars and they'd put blocks under the springs between the spring and differential, and it would drop the rear of the car down. And I was doing that in the garage. And
making your cool car look even cooler. What kind of car was it?
It was a 1950 Ford Coupe.
Right.
It was flathead engine. And so I got the Ford up on the bumper jacks of the day. And I'm under the car, and I had everything disassembled, meaning the springs were loose and the differential with the wheels and stuff on it was loose. And I'm facing the back of the car, and I see the two bumper jacks, and I don't know, I'm pushing on something or moving the differential around or trying to put the blocks on top of the springs and then move them into place. I'm doing it by myself, of course.
Now, are you flat on your back doing this, or how are you
No,
doing?
I'm on my side.
You're on your side, but under the car?
Yes,
Okay.
that's how high the car was. I gave the car or the differential a shove, and the whole car rocked. And I'm facing the back of the car, and I see the bumper jacks gracefully lean in one direction. And I said, that's not a good thing. And then they swung back the other way, and then they went down, and down came the car. All of a sudden, the frame of the car hit the side of my neck, the left side of my neck. And I heard cracking noises in my head, and I said, oh boy, am I in big trouble. And the car came down, and I'm sideways. And the only thing I remember is my left arm and hand came up to the underbody of the car as far as I could reach. And I pushed it up, I thought, because the car raised, and I slid out. Um, and I let the car drop. So I thought. And of course, I was worried about a broken neck and everything. And the wife was inside sleeping, so I didn't want to bother her. But I go to the mirror inside the garage where we had the washroom. I thought I broke my neck, to be honest. But I'm moving my head, and I said, well, then everything seems to be okay. There was a tremendous bruise mark where the frame, in fact, it was imprint, and I said, well, it hurts. And I said, that is really amazing, Joe. How the hell did you get out of that? And then a couple of minutes later, after I calmed down a bit, I went back to the car and I looked, and the body of the car is almost right on the concrete. And I said, no, that can't be. And I tried to lift the car up myself with both hands, grabbing the bottom of the car. I couldn't, well, it's an old Ford, weighs over 3,000 pounds. I couldn't move a thing, which got me thinking at the time. And I sat on a box I had there and I stared at the car, and where it was almost flush with the concrete. And I remember saying, how the hell did I ever get out of that? Because I couldn't have held it up with my left hand. And after it fell down past the only thing, again, that I remember in hindsight is my left hand was free. So, of course, it comes under the car as far as it could to try to push the weight off of you, and to push it up high enough that I could slide out. Well, to slide out, I needed at least 2 foot, 2.5 foot, because I was in sideways.
Yeah.
So the car had to be raised 2.5 foot, closer to three, before I'd have enough.
So and you have
Have
a memory sort of yeah, I just
no,
raised it with my left arm, right?
yeah,
But your memory is that you're just raising this thing with your left arm, sliding out, letting it down.
that's my memory,
Yeah.
and I'm saying I don't have superhuman strength. I mean, at the time I was in my 30s, late 30s, and about 175 pounds. And, I didn't have that kind of strength. But all of a sudden I feel, well, you hear about superhuman strength and all that. So again, when I was visualizing this and I'm inside, I'm still in the garage. And I said, well, let's just see. And I went over with both arms in a squat and tried to raise the back of the car at all. It wouldn't go up an inch. So how I raised it totally 2.5 to 3 foot with just my left hand while I was trapped under the car is impossible.
Okay, so you're ruling out those stories where what's the adrenaline's in the body and pumping it. You're ruling that out.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's not working.
Okay, so what are you thinking now?
Well, the obvious thing is something pulled the car up off of me and allowed me to slide out and then drop the car to where it would normally rest, which was flat on the ground. The frame of the car was maybe an inch off the concrete floor.
Yeah. Impossible.
Yes.
All impossible. Okay, now
Unless,
why would an angel come along and help good old Joe do that?
well, I asked myself that on more than one occasion since then. And the only answer that I have is that the guardian angel. And because there was no one else around, there was nothing else that could have happened. And I could have been, I mean, I had a closed garage. I would have been dead. I mean, plain and simple, the wife would have come out the next morning, and there's Joe on his side, crushed to death under the car. And that's the only alternative, is that something that powerful, that quick, had to be standing or sitting or alongside me, knowing the car was going to fall or seeing it fall, and just picked it off of me so I could slide out of it. There's no other explanation.
What were you saved for, Joe? When you look at your life, what do you believe you were saved for?
Well, Trapper, that's a darn good question because so much has happened to me since then, and I'm still mulling it over in my mind. Trapper, I was not a religious guy at that point. I mean, I would occasionally go to church on Sunday, but not in a meaningful way. I would go because I grew up every Sunday going to church as a kid, but not really understanding what I was doing, why it happened, why I was saved, and I think the answer was that was the angel's job. The interesting thing happened when I had the double brain aneurysm, which was still quite a few years ago.
Okay, so we're moving from that story. We're moving.
Yeah.
You say you had a near-death experience. Did you have an experience? Let's put it that way.
Oh, did I ever?
Okay, let's hear it.
Actually, I had two NDEs, if you want to call it that. But the first one was the brain aneurysm. I was not a religious person at the time. I had divorced my first wife and having a party time. And then I was doing some outside work around the cottage. And all of a sudden, I woke up and I was on the ground with a splitting headache. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was there for 4 or 5 hours unconscious. I jump in my car in the middle of the night. So I went to the county hospital. Walk in, there's a long line of people for emergency. And I cut through there, go up to the booth, say, look, you're going to want to know this because I'm about to pass out. Gave her some information, put my wallet on the counter, and I passed out. And the next one I remember, I'm on a gurney being wheeled into ER. I knew God was involved simply because from UCLA Medical Center, they had the best brain surgeon visiting, and this is the ultimate brain surgeon. Well, he was there when they rolled me in. I spent 9 hours on the operating table. Like Humpty Dumpty, they took half of my head off, away, chunk by chunk. And they went in there and they found two brain aneurysms. I was bleeding like crazy. They said I died on the table twice. And I don't remember anything they say for a couple of days until I'm in the ICU. And there's a team of white coats standing around me. And I open my eyes and there's do you know your name? Can you see my hand and everything else? And I'm answering all of their questions. And they spent about an hour there. And there were no ill after effects. They were worried about me passing out and not ever driving a car or anything else, and that all went by. And
So you
I
recovered
became
in pretty quick form, pretty quickly?
yes, I
Wow.
was out of the hospital within a week.
Wow.
What I remember is, you hear stories about people supposedly that have died, and they're going down a tunnel. There's a black tunnel, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? Well, I found that it's not a tunnel. I found myself traveling in total darkness. No, I'm not in heaven. I'm not in the sky, but I know I'm moving. I don't feel wind or breeze. I feel quite comfortable, but everything is totally black, but it's not a fearful black. And I look in the distance, and there is a speck of light, and I'm traveling towards it by no will of my own. I'm just heading in that direction. And as it comes close, or as I come closer to it, I see something very interesting that the light grows, of course, is quite, and is pulsating, but there's a rainbow over the top of it, just goes up one side and comes down the other. But of what I remember noticing, it's the most beautiful rainbow I've ever seen. The colors are colors we can't see on Earth, as far as I'm. They're vivid, they're beautiful, better than any jewel. And I'm approaching it. And I notice, the next thing I notice, it looks like a throne. There are steps, there are pillars, but coming out of this whiteness is actually, it looks like a stream of the purest water you can ever imagine. It's like crystals, like flowing crystal. And it's coming down the steps and it's running out. And I'm way to the side of it. I'm approaching it. It's on my left side. And it's, just like a stream would. And what I remember is like in the shallowest part of it, where it's very, very thin, like the edge of a stream, it's just there. It touched my left shoulder, and I couldn't believe it. It was like electricity. Uh, so much knowledge went into my being at that point. That was my spirit, my soul, if you will. So much went into me, and so much uh, joyfulness and happiness in this instantaneous touch. And it was like you're a complete person. After all these years of being on earth, you're not complete. Now you're complete. And I wanted more of it. And I tried to get into the stream itself, where more flowing and deeper. And I looked up, and there was actually God. I mean, God was, in my mind, not a person at all. It looked like a big orb of total energy, if you will, radiating the most beautiful colors you can, again, imagine. When I say blue, it's not a blue that you would ever find here on Earth, or a red, or gold. And he was standing there on the top of the steps, and he said, "No, you you're not ready now." Again, this lake of love, and that's what I call it, just brushed my shoulder very, very briefly. And it answered so many questions, and I wanted all of it. And, a strange thing came to mind at the time, because we hear and read in the Bible that the angels surround God, and they're praying, and that's all they can do. That's all they want to do, is to love God and be around him. And I thought to myself, and that got to be boring. I mean, you're just in one place, you're just doing that. But after I came in contact with his love, I knew exactly what they meant because you were total, you were complete, and he was there, and you wanted nothing else but to be close to God, to be anywhere near him, and you can't help but thank him and pray to him, uh, love him. Let's put it that way.
Let's go back
Uh,
a little bit here. So you're seeing this rainbow,
sure.
which forms into, as you see it, as a throne and steps up into the
Yeah,
throne, and water pouring out of this throne, like crystals pouring out of it, right? Is that what you said?
yes, exactly. And
Um,
it's running out into the blackness, uh, I would assume towards the earth,
yeah.
coming from a source. It's coming down the steps from the source.
And I also take from that living water. He called himself a living water. It definitely was living living water as he's touching you and bringing you.
It
Yeah.
it was unbelievable.
Now, where was this you say God or Father? Would you say more fatherish, Trinity? What are you kind of getting in that moment with this being?
It was God.
Just plain and
I
simple God.
Uh, I didn't get a feeling it was Jesus Christ or the Holy Trinity. It could have been all combined
Yeah. Well,
because
I think that's probably what you got then. You got God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit in one, and it was God. Period.
it was unbelievable. And
All of this is taking. There's no way of measuring time, and we know that.
no, of course not.
It felt like whatever it felt like, but you got a pretty early message that no, you're not staying. I'm giving you this experience, but you're not staying. And did you have a
Yes.
sense that you wanted to, as opposed
Oh,
to,
did I ever?
yeah,
I never wanted to be anywhere else. I never wanted to go back. I never wanted anything else but to be exactly where I was. This is the strange part. So I'm moving back to the right of the throne. I feel wonderful. And I go by the back of the throne, and there's something squirming over on my left side. And I look at it, and I feel this love draining from me. And I look over there, and by God, it looks like Satan. But I don't know what Satan looks like, but it's the ugliest thing. It's in a fetal position, it's curled up, and it's looking at me. And I just drifted right on by that. But it was the weirdest thing.
well, he is the accuser. He is the accuser,
Well, he was there, but in the blackness
right?
outside heaven. All
Okay,
right.
okay. So in the
That's all
spiritual
I
realm,
can
he's in
say.
the spiritual realm. Okay.
Yes, he was. I can't say he was green, black, or brown. He had wings, but he was ugly. And he was curled up in the fetal position. And it was the ugliest thing I ever saw in my life. But I couldn't see much because it was dark. So I drifted off and I came back to the hospital.
Do you find your
And
experiences of this heavenly moment, of the car moment, the angel, did those moments bring you to where you are now in your faith, or had that already happened?
no, the NDE meeting him after I was released from the hospital and regained my strength and everything. I'm going to church again. I was still going, you know, infrequently, but maybe every other Sunday or something, and taking communion and everything else. But now I was going back to church, and I feel so joyful because I could feel the Spirit in church, and tears are running out of my eyes, and a big smile on my face, and I'm crying like a baby. All right. That happened for a month or two. There's a certain part of the mass that just came at me, went inside me. It was around communion.
Which part, the consecration, or
Yes, yes,
okay,
exactly.
okay,
And I'm so happy I was never that happy in normal terms where I actually burst into tears.
There are times when you
Oh,
realize what's really going on, that you stepped
yeah,
into heaven. You're in heaven. You actually have stepped into heaven. This is where heaven and earth converge in there. There's a miracle that happens every Mass. So there are
yeah.
times when, yeah, it hits me of what's really going on there. Yeah.
And slowly but slowly, it waned, and it hasn't come back for quite a while. And I found myself being more charitable. I find myself now being totally different. And in reading the Bible, I found John in Revelations. And I read that part and I said, no, that can't be right. And I read it and I read it. And he talks about the throne of God with crystal on the floor. The crystal is so pure and so on and so forth. And I said, wait a minute, I was there. He was right. The crystal is purer than the finest diamond or anything on earth. You can't find anything as pure as any of the things that I saw in different colors. And the crystal is God's love and it's pouring out to mankind. And I said, yeah, man, I saw that. I was there, but it's not crystal. It's God's love.
Let's pause right about here. Then more with Joseph and his near-death experiences. Plural, plural. And we have another car story coming up here. Another car trying to crush him. Thank goodness he's got a really strong, always alert angel. Yeah. First, though, a Patreon shout-out at this juncture, and that would go to Phyllis. Phyllis Merling. Thank you so much, Phyllis, being part of the Patreon family, keeping this all going, supporting us at patreon.com, and search for your Trapper Jack. Or you can come right here to episode 193 and just click your way through and join the Patreon family. Thank you so much for keeping Touched by Heaven going and for finding us. You found us. And listening and hopefully supporting. Thank you so much. All right. Now more with Joseph here on Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. There was yet another near-death experience for Joseph, very similar. This occurred when his appendix actually burst.
At that point, I mean, I was gone. I still saw the same thing. I was not allowed to approach it, but I approached close enough to see the rainbow, the throne, and
You had the exact same experience, the same rainbow, the same throne, the same everything.
it was the whiteness. I was traveling through space. There's the rainbow. There's the love coming out of it.
Wow.
But I didn't get near it at all.
Okay. No voice this time saying, no, it's not your time.
No,
You just went back.
exactly.
Wow.
Well, it took me so long to realize all that we owe him and all the good that he does for us spiritually and physically as well. But we're so caught up in our day-to-day lives that we put him second, third, and fourth place. And in some cases treat him like a bowl of cereal. Yeah, it's there. Do you want banana on it? But it isn't anything special as it should and can be.
Yeah, I know. I lived most of my life that way.
So have I.
What would you say the transition point for you was?
Oh, without a doubt, the transition point was the brain aneurysm.
Yeah, and the near-death experience and you got a chance to touch heaven there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's the strongest source of energy. The love flows down from his altar and out onto humanity, and he loves us so much. It's well, I don't want to say unbelievable again, but
Unfathomable. I can't say that word very well, but
unfathomable. I
yeah.
like that. Unfathomable for us to understand the kind of love that he has for each and every one of us. We are putting him in the back seat instead of at the steering wheel.
We started with a car story, that car that was trying to crush you. I'm comparing you to Christine, by the way, the car Christine. You got cars on two ends of your episode here that seem to want to do you in.
That was an excellent movie. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Car with an attitude. But let's get to this other car story. And how long ago did this happen?
Oh, probably 1967. It's about 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. We're driving along Route 22. Traffic is quite light at that time in the morning, and we're alongside the concrete dividing wall. I had a 1963 Buick Skylark red convertible, and I'm in the number one lane and doing about 70, maybe even a little more. And all of a sudden, it came on me like a hammer. And all of a sudden, it's no, move over. You feel uneasy. No, you better move over. No, you better move over. So I moved to the middle lane. I felt better, but not good enough. And then I said, no, you got to move to the right, move to the right. So I started to move over, and you don't see a lot of the eastbound traffic because of the divider wall. But in this case, I saw what looked like headlights, and they were doing a dance on the top of the divider. And I'm staring at that, and then instantly realized when I saw sparks as well that, by God, there's a car coming over the divider. He landed on our side of the freeway, and all the wheels are flat and broken, and he's sliding on his axles, and he's coming right towards us. And I'm in the third lane. And I pull further over. I go to the shoulder of the road, and then I go off the shoulder up a slight embankment in the woods almost. And this car is sliding sideways, still coming at us, and he's coming right for the driver's side door. I stopped the Buick in back of a big wooden telephone pole, and I'm saying to myself, oh boy, he's heading right towards my door. And then he straightened up a little bit, went a little to his left, and instead of hitting the vehicle, hit the telephone pole that we were stuck in back of. I was amazed to see the impact and to actually see the wooden telephone pole spin and then snap. As I saw this telephone pole starting to fall towards us, the pole did fall across my vehicle, hit the right side of the hood and the fender, crushed it, absolutely crushed it. And it missed crushing the windshield, which is a convertible windshield, by about 2-3 inches. So I got out of the vehicle first because I was driving and ran over to the other vehicle and started pulling teenagers out. God was on their side as well. But when we think about it, if I would have stayed in the number one lane, the car would have hit us at the windshield level and killed everybody.
And this was not at a time in 1966. It's not like you had a good thing going with your angel at that time,
That was an awakening to me that someone was keeping their eye on me.
Were you that perceptive then? Were you that aware that afterwards when you started thinking, why the heck was I feeling so nudged to move to slower lanes when I never do that? Did that happen right away?
It happened within a couple of days. And that was 2 years earlier. There were three of us. There was Bob, his date in the middle, and I was on the passenger side. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. He came off the exit and promptly, because it was a curved exit to the right, he came off and he hit the curb on the left side, which of course did a lot of damage to the vehicle, but it threw the vehicle to the right side, and the vehicle was up on its doors. In other words, it's about to roll over, and there's no seatbelts, of course. Everyone's pressing against me because I'm by the door. And in those four-door hardtop convertibles, there's no structure to hold the door closed. So the door pushed open, and I'm being pushed out of the vehicle. And we're doing probably 70 miles an hour. I remembered thinking, should I try to hold on or should I just let go? And for some reason, I just let go. The car continuing, I out of the car, and the wheel, the right rear wheel, uh, glanced alongside my leg, and then after the car passed, I started to roll, and there was a median area, and I ended up in that.
You're out of the
And
car. You flew out of the car at 70 miles an
I
hour.
flew out of the car, yeah. And I remember Bob saying they looked around and Joe was gone, and at first everyone's jumping out, calling my name. They didn't know where I was. so they all came down, and I thought somebody else in the vehicle was injured because I got up and I was fine, a little sore on my left cheek, and I walked over to him and said, "Is everyone all right?" And they looked at me like I was a ghost. But it was events like that in me said people die from stuff like that. People break legs from stuff like this, and if it wasn't for a guardian angel, I would have been severely injured instead of being able to laugh it off and saying, well, I ruined a good pair of pants.
Are you up to 9 lives yet?
No, I think I passed 9 lives 20 years ago.
My gosh. I mean, talk about and a sign of things to come, too. I mean, there's 2 that you dodged around, in the 60s and more to come. I mean, that was just the beginning. My gosh.
Yes, it was.
I just thank you for these stories, and you're still kicking, buddy. You still got some stuff to do. Just be careful, would you? Just be careful.
Well, yeah, I certainly will be, but I'm praying a lot more these days than I ever was, and thanking the Lord. And perhaps one day I'll find out why, if there is a reason.
Thanks, Joseph. God's just not ready for you yet. Between the first car and the last car, and then the near-death experiences, a couple of brain aneurysms at the same time. No, apparently you still have a long way to go. You're not done yet. So thank you so much for your stories. Transformation is continuing, and thank you so much for sharing your story. If you'd like to share yours with us, please get a hold of me here at touchedbyheaven.net. But a couple of things here. First, that is, once again, we look at the fruit. We see the transformation in Joseph from the beginning being this rough and tumble, rogue, rebel kind of guy to what he is now, a very faithful servant. And there's no such thing as coincidence, right? No such thing. So today, as I put this all together, Beth and I went to Mass, and the homily had to do with a feast day today. It's the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas. He lived in the 1200s. He's considered a Christian genius. All of the teachings that came from him, just a brilliant, brilliant man. And apparently, I didn't know this until today, one of the things that would occur during a Mass that St. Thomas Aquinas would celebrate every time, is that at the time of the consecration, when the priest repeats Jesus' words, "This is my body, this is my blood," St. Thomas Aquinas would burst into tears also. So you're in good company, Joseph. When you were touched by the living water, that crystal water, when it touched you with all that knowledge, everything that you said made you feel complete, and then you came back and then would go to Mass, and during the consecration, you'd burst into tears and you couldn't understand why. You're not that kind of guy. That's not what you do, but you did. You were feeling the exact same thing as St. Thomas Aquinas felt up there on the altar in that same moment of feeling that moment of what that moment really is. So you're in good company, Joseph. You're in good company. And even though it didn't last more than a month or two, you said, you felt it. You felt it. So I just think that's pretty cool stuff too. Part of the fruit. It's part of the fruit you brought back, of near-death experiences. And the fact that when it's not your time, it's not your time. Simple as that. All right. That'll do it. And thank you again for listening and supporting us through patreon.com. Go to patreon.com, search for Trapper Jack, or come here to episode 193. You know, if you click Stay Informed, you get more Touched by Heaven stuff. We send out a weekly email as well. Just letting you know here at touchedbyheaven.net. All right. I will see you next week here at Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.